Hi, y'all. Hope you're all doing well. I have some time to record here. My partner and daughter are out and got a nice, beautiful, sunny day to consider what's going on in the Bible. And I'm reading through Genesis. Again, I'm taking it very, very slow, making notes as I go. And I'm doing it through the Septuagint, as I have pictured here. I read through the KJV the first time, and I'm noticing subtle differences, a couple of omissions here and there, but mostly just different spellings of names and maybe different names in places. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same text as far as I gather thus far. We'll see as we go forward. I was prompted to get the Septuagint by one of the commenters on my channel, Just Me. She made the point of the Septuagint having the true name of God, Yahweh, instead of Jehovah, that's present in the KJV. So as we get further along, we'll see if that's truly important. But I believe if you are following the Ten Commandments and you take the words of Jesus Christ seriously, then that's the essence of it. I think there's a lot in the Bible that can be called into question. I think it's hardly an inerrant text. I think in many ways it's been designed to manipulate minds. So let's dig into what I'm thinking about today, which is the section of Genesis 25 through 35 that primarily deals with the life and times of Jacob. So Jacob's grandfather Abraham dies around 25, and Isaac marries Rebecca. And I guess getting into just have that, we'll finish off Abraham quickly here. Or we'll talk about Abraham quickly here. Abraham, falling, died in good old age, an old man and full of days, and was added to his people. And Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the double cave, in the field of Ephron, the son of Sar, the Chetite, which is over against Mamre, even the field in the cave which Abraham bought of the sons of Chet, where they buried Abraham, and Sarha, which was the change from Sarah. It was interesting. They had her change her name, just slightly spelling change. And it came to pass after Abraham was dead that God blessed Isaac, his son, and Isaac dwelt by the well of vision. So, talking briefly about Abraham, he had to go through perhaps the worst ordeal ever, where God told him to kill his son, Isaac, put him up there, and then just as he's about to do the deed and kill his son with the knife, God stops him and says, "Oh, I was just testing your faith." And I think this is a place where people point to, myself included, of this text being manipulative, and it draws you in really early on with that. If you're gonna go along and believe in this God the entire time, you have to go along with this situation between Abraham and Isaac. And Isaac, you'd think that person would be traumatized their whole life to have their father bring them up and then on the verge of killing them, and then don't at the last moment hold back and not do it. It's still going to it's going to create all sorts of trauma for Isaac. And that story rubs me the wrong way. Adam and Eve rubs me the wrong way. It sets this precedent about women being lesser than man inherently, and I've never liked that. It's part of what drove me away from any biblical teachings. But there's obviously a lot of good here, and I think basically what we've got is a text with a lot of good and a lot of bad, and we gotta sort through it. So that's what this video is about. We're trying to figure out what's going on with Jacob. So Jacob and Esau are the sons of Isaac and Rebekah. So we'll read here. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took to wife Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Syrian, out of Syrian Mesopotamia, sister of Laban, who we'll talk more about later, the Syrian. And Isaac prayed the Lord concerning Rebekah his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord heard him, and his wife Rebekah conceived in her womb. And the babies leaped within her, and she said, "If it will be so with me, why is this to me?" And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, "There are two nations in thy womb, and two people shall be separated from thy belly, and one people shall excel the other, and the elder shall serve the younger." So God wants this curiosity at this point, because uh, what's written as we go forward here, there is this attention, and there still is to this day, to birthright, where the oldest child is given, in many families, greater attention. by virtue of them being the oldest. There's this theory out there that the oldest child has the healthiest genes because it got the majority of the mother's nutrients that was present, and as women get older and we lose our vital substance, and maybe maybe with consecutive children the vital forces aren't as strong. But I disagree with this statement. I think we're brought into life and we have that divine connection with God, and we can choose to live along it, or do evil things and then be lost. And I just find it so interesting here that the Lord set these divided brothers up. So reading further here, and the days were fulfilled that she would be delivered, and she had twins in her womb. And the first came out red, hairy all over like a skin, and she called his name Esau. And we know we talked about red hair recently. Something special about that. But reading through here, you'll see, we'll learn more about Esau. And after this came forth his brother, and his hand took hold of the heel of Esau, and she called his name Jacob. So Jacob pulls the heel of his brother, and this is very similar to later on in Genesis, where you have, I believe it's Phareus and what is the two brothers. Hold on, I'm gonna find that real quick. Phareus and oh yeah, the scarlet red thread put on first hand thrust forth by Zara, but Phareah came out first. So and later on, Thamar gives birth in Genesis, and Phareah sticks the hand out, and it's the red thread. So Phareah is kind of reminiscent of Jacob here, in that they're like eager to come out into the world. It reminds me, if you guys are familiar with the film Kirikou, and how Kirikou walks out of his mom's womb, the animated film Kirikou, and was just ready to take on life and so forth. Okay, so we'll keep going. And the lads grew, and Esau was a man skilled in hunting, dwelling in the country, and Jacob a simple man dwelling in a house. And Isaac loved Esau because his venison was his food, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So the parents are divided against them. They have very different means of living. Esau being the hunter outdoorsman type, and Jacob being the more homebound, or workshop type person who prefers to do things at home and make food and do just. These are equally important roles, basically. So this is where it gets confused. This is where my alarm bells go off. The Esau sells his birthright. So obviously God had said what he had said. So maybe God's speaking to Jacob here, and we're just not led into this as much. But in Jacob, here we go. And Jacob cooked pottage, and Esau came from the plain fainting. And Esau said to Jacob, "Let me taste of that red pottage, because I am fainting." Therefore his name was called Edom. So I'm guessing fainting means Edom. Maybe I can read into that more. I haven't dug into that. Someone can, or I can just research that later on. And Jacob said to Esau, and you hear about the Edomites, "Sell me this day thy birthright." So maybe Edom is like maybe it's supposed to refer to people that are like starving, or they're beggars, because he could have he could have had food for himself. So Esau comes in, he's exhausted, he needs the pottage, otherwise he's going to faint, maybe even die. And Jacob tells him, "Sell me this day thy birthright." And Esau said, "Behold, I'm going to die, and for what good does this birthright belong to me?" And Jacob said to him, "Swear to me this day." And he swore to him, and Esau sold his birthright to Jacob. So in the moment, Esau is needing this nourishment, this sustenance, or else he'll die. I can imagine where you'd faint or not be very well. It definitely would improve his state of being, but let's just go along with it. Let's say he'll die if he does not eat this food. So Jacob does the evil blackmailing thing and takes the birthright so that he gets basic sustenance. So clearly these brothers are already vying. They don't like each other already. Like, I would never, if my brother was out for the day or whatever, or vice versa, that situation would just, that's so beyond evil. So Jacob already seems a little bit sketchy to me. Sure, he made food for him, and maybe that's the way to think about it, is Jacob was providing while Esau was out running around, and maybe there is a deeper linkage here in what I've referenced before of the Essene gospel and this idea that we're not supposed to eat flesh, and maybe Esau's going out and hunting was his heir. But as we read further, I don't think this is the case. So Jacob gave bread to Esau and pottage of lentils, and he ate and drank, and he rose and departed. So Esau slighted his birthright. So that's red. That is the code red number one. It's the first area where it's early on with Jacob's life where you're like, huh, what's going on here? So going forward a little bit, Genesis 27, it came to pass after Isaac was old that his eyes were dim so that he could not see, virtually blind. And he called Esau, his elder son, and said to him, My son. And he said, Behold, I am here. And he said, Behold, I am grown old, and know not the day of my death. Now then, take the weapons, both thy quiver and thy bow, and go into the plain and get me venison, and make me meats as I like them, and bring them to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die. So Rebekah heard this, and Rebekah heard Isaac speaking to Esau his son, and Esau went to the plain to procure venison for his father. And Rebekah said to Jacob, her younger son, Behold, I heard thy father speaking to Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison and prepare me meats, that I may eat and bless thee before the Lord before I die. Now then, my son, hearken to me as I command thee, and go to the cattle, and take for me thence 2 kids, tender and good, and I will make them meats for thy father as he likes. So Rebekah, as we said earlier, prefers Jacob. Yeah, Rebekah loves Jacob. She goes under her blind husband's eyes here, and tells her younger son to go out and prepare not venison, but 2 baby goats, tender and good, to 2 kids, and make the meats for thy father as he likes. And thou shalt bring them into thy father, and he shall eat, that thy father may bless thee before he dies. So they're trying to earn Isaac's blessing, because Isaac can't bless them both apparently, and Isaac is intending on blessing his eldest son in this great feast, this great goodbye. And Rebekah goes under it. And Rebekah heard Isaac speaking to Esau his son, and blah blah blah. Let's see. And Jacob said to his mother Rebekah, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I a smooth man. And that's just so funny. This makes me think of maybe this was written for this world. Like, the smooth men are the free Martin, but it also could be just the fact that he cooks pottage, and Esau goes out into the rugged wilderness, and yeah, okay. So there's 2 angles on that, but let's just run with it. Let's pretend it's the latter. Peradventure my father may feel me, and I shall be before him as one ill-intentioned. So obviously, if he's saying if he gets felt by his father, and obviously his father knows he's not hairy, he'll be like, oh, then you're lying, and it won't go so well for him. And I shall bring upon me a curse and not a blessing. And his mother said to him, On me be thy curse, son. Only hearken to my voice, and go and bring them me. So this is Jezebel-like, man. This is not right. This is Rebekah taking it into her own hands. You don't know if she's talking to God. This is where it gets really strange to me. So she's saying she'll eat the curse. He doesn't have to worry about it. So he went and took and brought them to his mother, and his mother made meats as his father liked them. And Rebekah, having taken the fine raiment of her elder son Esau, which was with her in the house, put it on Jacob, her younger son, and she put on the skins of the kids on the bare parts of his neck. This to me reads like vampire weird. Why would you take the skins of these little dead goats and put them on your neck and this is gross. This is just disgusting to me, but this is how it plays out. This is apparently Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel. This is where God's people are descendant from, is this crazy grandmother, I guess Rebekah at this point, and leading on to Jacob and so forth. So she gave the meats and the loaves which he prepared, and to bless thee before he dies, in the hands of Jacob her son. And he brought them to his father and said, Father. And he said, Behold, I am here. Who art? And then he said, Isaac said, "Who art thou, son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I, Esau, thy firstborn, have done as thou toldest me. Rise, sit, and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me." And Isaac said to his son, "What is this which thou hast quickly found?" Because he came back right away. It wasn't like his poor timing. This is just such a bad lie that Rebekah and Jacob are trying to run here. And he said, "That which the Lord thy God presented before me." And Isaac said to Jacob, "Draw nigh to me, and I will feel thee, son." Draw nigh, I think. Again. If thou art my son, uh, uh, if thou art my son Esau or not. And Jacob drew nigh to his father Isaac, and he felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he knew him not, for his hands were as the hands of his brother Esau, hairy, and he blessed him. And he said, "Art thou my son Esau?" And he said, "I am." And he said, "Bring hither, and I will eat of thy venison, son." So the father is so far gone, he can't, I mean, he still can hear. And you know when you go blind, your hearing usually is acutely improved, but he's old, so let's just go along with all of his senses are failing, and he just can't tell. And Jacob was able to pull this off. And he said, "Bring hither, and I will eat of thy venison." So he gives him the baby goats, doesn't give him the venison. Brought near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And Isaac his father said to him, "Draw nigh to me, and kiss me, son." And he drew nigh, and kissed him, and smelled the smell of his garments, and blessed him, and said, "Behold, the smell of my son is as the smell of an abundant field, which the Lord has blessed. And may God give thee of the dew of heaven, and of the fatness of the earth, an abundance of corn and wine. Let the nations serve thee, and princes bow down to thee, and be thou lord of thy brother, and the sons of thy father shall do thee reverence. Cursed is he that curses thee, and blessed is he that blesses thee." So we'll continue on here. And it came to Esau's lost hope. And it came to pass, after Isaac had ceased blessing his son Jacob, it even came to pass, just when Jacob had gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also had made meats and brought them to his father, of course, the venison that he requested. And he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of the son's venison, that thy soul may bless me." And Isaac his father said to him, "Who art thou?" And he said, "I am thy firstborn son Esau." And Isaac was amazed, with great amazement, redundant, and said, "Who then is it that has procured venison for me, and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and I have blessed him, and he shall be blessed." And it came to pass, when Esau heard the words of his father Isaac, he cried out with a great and very bitter cry, and said, "Bless, I pray thee, me also, father." And he said to him, Thy brother has come with subtlety, and taken thy blessing." And he said, "Rightly was his name called Jacob, for lo, this second time has supplanted me." Uh, I think Jacob means second. It's like the second, yeah. "He has both taken my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing." So Esau is feeling just all raw. He feels all out of sorts because of what Jacob has pulled over on him. One day he's out there in the field collecting food for everybody, and then comes back fainting and requests food. And Jacob says, "You can only get the food so long as you give me your birthright." Okay, so that's step A. And then years pass, and Abraham's on the verge of death, and then Rebecca goes under, doesn't like Esau, doesn't and has Jacob lie and do this whole stunt. So "Hast thou not left a blessing for me, father?" And Isaac answered and said to Esau, "If I have made him thy lord, and have made all his brethren his servants, and have strengthened him with corn and wine, then what shall I do for thee, son?" And Esau said to his father, "Hast thou only one blessing, father?" That's my question. Like, what? "Bless, I pray thee, me also, father." And Isaac, being troubled, Esau cried aloud and wept. So Isaac his father answered and said to him, "Behold, thy dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And thou shalt live by the sword, and shalt serve thy brother. And there shall be a time when thou shalt break and loosen his yoke from off thy neck." And Esau was angry with Jacob because of the blessing and with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his mind, "Let the days of my father's mourning draw nigh, that I may." So, Esau having these thoughts, being envious, I get that. That's evil. Like, he should still be calm. It's kind of tough. Esau's being put through a Job-like situation. He's really being given a rough time, unless this entire time that we aren't given enough of detail behind Esau. Is he been rough this whole time? Is he coarse with people? Is he just championed by his father because of his aptitude in hunting, but maybe he's not a great brother? I don't know. So he's waiting for his father to die so that he can kill his brother. In the words of Esau, her elder son reported to Rebekah, so she knows that now. And then she has to hide her younger son, who she's now put through this ringer. So she put her son in danger by doing this because she really wanted to earn that blessing. So it's a really curious way of thinking about it, where they could easily have done an even blessing, but As it's written, God wanted the younger to rule over the older, and this is the way it came to be. And I just, all sorts of alarms go off with how Jacob treated his brother and the lack of insight we're given into how Esau actually was. So if he indeed was a decent neutral party, what Jacob did was evil, and there's no doubt about it. But if Esau was perhaps uh, a coarse, mean person who had, was just selfish and like acted like a rock star, maybe, then I could see how this could play out. But it's just not written like that. It's written like Jacob is this liar, sneaky, a younger brother. So Rebecca hears all this, and she sent and called Jacob her younger son and said to him, "Behold, Esau thy brother threatens thee to kill thee, not because of me, because of Rebecca. Now then, my son, hear my voice and rise and depart quickly into Mesopotamia, to Laban." So Laban we talked about earlier, her brother, into Sharhan, and dwell with him certain days until thy brother's anger and rage depart from thee, and he forget what thou hast done to him. And I will send and fetch thee thence, lest at any time I should be bereaved of you both in one day. And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of the sons of Chet. If Jacob shall take a wife of the daughters of this land, wherefore should I live? So she doesn't know where she's going to go next based on what's going to happen with Jacob. So Jacob goes out to Laban, her brother, and let's see, rise in the part. Yep. May God bless thee, increase thee, and multiply thee. And may he give thee the blessing of my father Abraham, even to thee and to thy seed after thee, to inherit the land of thy sojourning, which God gave to Abraham. So Isaac sent away Jacob after his blessing, and he went to Mesopotamia to Laban. So Esau marries once he sees that Isaac blesses Jacob and he goes away. He marries another wife. As he blessed him, takes to himself a wife thence, and that he charged him, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the charge of the Canaanites. And then Jacob hearkened to his father and his mother, went to Mesopotamia. Okay, so then Jacob's ladder happened shortly after this on his journey. Jacob came to a certain place and slept there, for the sun had gone down, and he took one of the stones of the place and put it on his head, and lay down to sleep in that place, and dreamed, and behold, the ladder fixed on the earth, whose top reached to heaven, and the angels of God ascended and descended on it. And the Lord stood upon it and said, I am the God of Father Abraham and God of Isaac. Fear not the land on which thou liest. To thee will I give it, and to thy seed. It makes you think of principalities. Maybe there are various ladders littered throughout, and there's angels coming down and going back up and so forth. And thy seed shall be as the sand of the earth, and it shall spread abroad to the sea, and into the south, and the north, and to the east, and in thy seed shall all the tribes of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee to preserve thee continually in all the way wherein thou shalt go, and I will bring thee back to this land, for I will not desert thee until I have done all that I have said to thee. And Jacob awaked out of his sleep and said, The Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, How fearful is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So he's having these divine dreams and so forth. So here's where it gets interesting with Laban. So Laban, right, we talked about, is Rebekah's brother. So this is Jacob's uncle. This is Jacob's uncle. And when Jacob comes to Laban, he's going to serve him because he needs protection from Esau. So we'll read here. Thou art of my bones and of my flesh, and he was with him a full month. And Laban said to Jacob, Surely thou shalt not serve me for nothing, because thou art my brother. Tell me what thy reward is to be. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And the eyes of Leah were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in appearance and exceedingly fair in countenance. So saying that Leah might be like somewhat blind, it takes away from her appearance, and I just disagree with that on principle. But sure, Jacob found Rachel fair. So Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for thy younger daughter Rachel. And Laban said to him, It is better that I should give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Dwell with me. So Laban here is not giving enough information out. So you'll see. And Jacob served for Rachel 7 years, and they were before him as a few days by reason of his loving her. And Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go into her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a marriage feast. And it was even And he took his daughter Leah and brought her into Jacob, and Jacob went into her, and Laban gave to his daughter Leah Zelpha his handmaid, as a handmaid for her. And it was morning, and behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, What is this that thou hast done to me? Did I not serve thee for Rachel? And wherefore hast thou deceived me? And Laban answered, It is not done thus in our country, to give the younger before the elder. So now you have this principle that I don't know how many people know about this, but the elder is supposed to be given before the younger, despite how people feel. And so fulfill then her sevens. This is a strange concept. So you essentially go into a strange country, you meet somebody right away, you take to their daughter, and then you have to fulfill a 7 year contract of work, and then once you've done that, then you can marry. It's interesting. And I will give to thee her also in return for thy labor, which thou laborest with me, yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her seven. So Jacob, probably really frustrated, thought he'd be able to go away with his wife, realizes, oh, now I'm gonna have to spend I have to spend another whole 7 years to get to earn Rachel. And just this whole dowry earning of it's wrong, obviously. And Jesus comes to fulfill the law in the New Testament and so forth with this. But these people being the progenitors of life and all the tribe of Israel, it's very strange to think about. So we'll go. It gets weirder. So fulfilled the sevens, and Laban gave to his daughter his handmaid Bala for a handmaid to her. So both Leah and Rachel have handmaidens. So Leah has Zelpha, and Rachel has Bala. So he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served him 7 other years. Okay. So then, so the Lord God saw that Leah was hated. He opened her womb. So upon seeing that upon seeing that Jacob didn't like her, he's like, well, now she's going to be the one that can actually conceive. But Rachel was barren. So it's just like, it's so strange how, like, maybe Jacob was going after Rachel in lust, but as we go forward, it seems more like it was in love. Very strange how this comes to be. So Leah, the one he didn't want to marry, but happens to be married to just because he fulfilled her sevens, conceived and bore a son to Jacob, and she called his name Reuben, who has problems later on, saying, Because the Lord has looked on my humiliation, has given me a son, now that my husband will love me. And she conceived again and bore a second son to Jacob. And she said, Because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given to me this one also. And she called his name Simeon. Makes me think of simians, like a lot of the fake monkeys that are out there, chimpanzees. And she conceived yet again and bore a son. And she said, In the present time, my husband will be with me, for I have borne him 3 sons, Levi. And having conceived yet again, she bore a son and said, Now yet, this time will I give thanks to the Lord. And therefore she called his name Judah. And Judah also has a lot of problems later on, too. So this is where it gets nuts, because this is fulfilling the 12 tribes of Israel. And these are where they come from, right? So Rachel, having perceived that she bore Jacob no children, was jealous of her sister, and said to Jacob, Give me children, and if not, I shall die. And Jacob was angry with Rachel and said to her, Am I in the place of God, who has deprived thee of the fruit of the womb? Okay, fair. And Rachel said to Jacob, Behold, my handmaid Bala, go into her. And Bala makes you think Baal. And she shall bear upon my knees. Really strange phrasing. And I also shall have children by her. So she's essentially a surrogate, but he's just going into her directly. It's just through Rachel's blessing. She's allowing it to happen. So she gave him Bala, her maid, for a wife to him, and Jacob went into her. So Jacob's like, all right, sure, we'll have more children because you can't. And she bore the first son was Dan, and then she bore again, prevailed, and she called his name Nephthalim. So, and Dan is a tribe that has dark connotations, and both these tribes could be considered the darker or the more harmful of those in the Bible, and they come from this handmaid relationship with Jacob that becomes Israel. So maybe it goes to show you the law is enact here. These children are cursed because they're born of a a uh, out of wedlock, essentially, and adultery. It's got to be adultery. Having concubines just doesn't. It can't be right. So Leah saw. So then Leah responds. This is jealous response. Leah and Rachel are butting heads. These two sisters are butting heads. Excuse me. So she took Zelpha, her maid, and gave her to Jacob, and he went into her. And Zelpha, the maid of Leah, conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, "It's happily," and she called his name Gad. So Gad meaning happily. And she conceived again, and she says, "I'm blessed." And blessed meaning, and she called his name Azer, which must be like Old Hebrew for blessed. So then it continues to get weirder and weirder between Leah and Rachel. So Reuben went in the day of the barley harvest and found apples of mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. And Rachel, seeing this, said to Leah her sister, "Give me of thy son's mandrakes." And Leah said, "Is it not enough for thee that thou hast taken my husband? Wilt thou also take my son's mandrakes?" So they're butting heads at this point. And Rachel said, "No, not so. Let him lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes." Shows she's willing to exchange her crops now so she can essentially prostitute Leah. Right? Like, it gets so weird. So now she's trading the oh man, she's trading the crops for sex with the shared husband. So you get him tonight. Yeah, I got your crops. You get him tonight. I got your son's crops. You get him tonight. Says Rachel. Jeez. And Jacob came in out of the field at even, and Leah went forth to meet him and said, "Thou shalt came in to me this day, for I have hired thee for my son's mandrakes." So you could just like, "Oh, I've earned your place. I've earned your bed." Like, it's just too weird. So this was a fruitful turn. God hearkened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, "God has given me my reward because I gave my maid to my husband." And she called his name Isaac Char. So all these names are, the last few have been all these signifying names. Reward is now Isaac Char. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, "God has given me a good gift at this time. My husband will choose for me, for I have borne him six sons." And she called him Zabulon. And then finally she bears a daughter, Dinah, who will come up later. So God remembers Rachel. Rachel hasn't had any children of her own yet. And God hearkened to her, and she opened her womb, and she bore Jacob a son, and Rachel has Joseph. And Joseph becomes the favorite of the bunch. He has visions. He gets dogged by his siblings for having visions. He's the favorite of Jacob. And then this comes back to my original point about Rachel and Jacob being the genuine partners, and God taking a long time to make the, I guess, ideal offspring, so to speak, of Joseph. But it's that original love from whence it was born. So when it came to pass, Rachel had born Joseph. Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away, that I may go to my place and to my land, restore my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, that I may depart." For thou knowest the service wherewith I have served thee. And Laban said to him, "If I have found grace in thy sight, I would augur well, for the Lord has blessed me at thy coming in. Appoint me thy wages, and I will give them." And Jacob said, "Thou knowest in what things I have served thee, and how many cattle of thine are with me. For it was little thou hast before my time, and it has increased to a multitude, and the Lord God has blessed thee since my coming. Now then, when shall I set up also my own house?" And Laban said to him, "What shall I give thee?" And Jacob said to him, "Thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again tend thy flocks." Um, so Jacob perceives that Laban wasn't paying him well for his sheep, so he leaves in the middle of the he leaves without telling Laban. So Jacob arose and took his wives and children up on the camels, and he took away all his possessions. So uncle and nephew don't have good relations in this moment. Jacob doesn't trust him and leaves with his two daughters and all that belong. So we'll continue here. Which had gone to Mesopotamia, and all that belonged to him to depart to Isaac his father in the land of Chanaan. And Laban went to share his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's images. So idol worship, Laban wasn't the maybe wasn't strongest in the word or didn't understand it yet, but he was an idol worshiper. So Jacob hid the matter from Laban instead of being upfront with him, which was kind of strange. But Jacob's used to hiding things at this point, so as to not tell him that he ran away. And he departed himself and all that belonged to him and passed over the river. So Laban pursues him, and he's taken over a vision. God came to him, Laban the Syrian, asleep by night, and said to him, "Take heed to thyself that thou speak not at any time to Jacob evil things." Like, I understand your anger, but don't go after Jacob in the way that you feel, you feel rightly angry for how he departed on a whim. Um, so now then go on thy way, for thou hast earnestly desired to depart from the house of thy father, wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? And Jacob answered and said, Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, lest at any time thou shouldest take us away my daughters from me and all my possessions. And Jacob said, with whomsoever thou shalt find thy gods, he shall not live in the presence of our brethren. Take notice of what I have of thy property, and take it. And he observed nothing with him. But Jacob knew not that his wife Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went in and searched in the house of Leah and found them not. And he went out of the house of Leah. So obviously he values these very much. And searched in the house of Jacob. And it doesn't make sense, like valuing like crosses and all this idolatry nonsense. Or like graven images, things like that. It's just ridiculous. I'm holier than thou because of the materials I have. And in the house of the two maidservants, and found them not. And he went also into the house of Rachel, and Rachel took the idols and cast them among the camel packs and sat upon them. So just really showing above and beyond that they do not respect his idol worship, and they're going to remove that as they leave. Be not, and she said to her father, be not indignant, sir. I cannot rise up before thee, for it is with me according to the manner of women. Okay. So Jacob feels like he's vindicated because he left. He did his 20 years. So he strove with Laban. Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my injustice? What's my sin? That thou hast pursued after me, and that thou hast searched all the furniture of my house. What hast thou found of all the furniture of thine house? Set it here between thy relations and my relations, and let them decide between us two. These 20 years have I been with thy sheep, and thy she-goats have not failed in bearing. I devoured not the rams of thy cattle, that which was taken of beasts I brought not to thee. I made good of myself the thefts of the day and the thefts of the night. I was parched with heat by day and chilled with frost by night, and my sleep departed from thy eyes. These 20 years have I been in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years among thy sheep. Excuse me. And thou didst falsely rate my wages for 10 lambs. So that's the essence of why Jacob left the way he did, is he felt like Laban wasn't going to treat him well, wasn't going to let him leave on good terms. So I can understand that. Unless I had the God of my father Abraham and the fear of Isaac, now thou wouldst have sent me away empty. God saw my humiliation and the labor of my hands and rebuked thee yesterday. So then they make a covenant, and I think it's just so telling that as they gather stones and they bear witness for this covenant that they're going to make amends. And Laban, I think it's so funny, it's so telling about their relationship that Laban calls it the heap of testimony, and Jacob called it the witness heap. They can't even call it the same thing. They're like, okay, I guess we get along. And Laban said to Jacob, behold, this heap and the pillar which I have set between me and thee, this heap witnesses and this pillar witnesses. Therefore its name was called the heap witnesses. In the vision of which he said, let God look to it between me and thee, because we are about to depart from each other. If thou shalt humble my daughters, and thou shouldest take us wives in addition to my daughters, see, there is no one with us looking on. God is witness. So then shortly thereafter, Jacob's migrating with his family, and he wrestles with God. So he rose up in the night and took his 2 wives and 2 servant maids and his 11 children and crossed over the ford of Jabbok. And he took them and passed over the torrent and brought over all his possessions. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till the morning. So it's this, I suppose it would be like a divine, like an angelic being that disguised itself as a man. And he saw that he prevailed not against him, and he touched the broad part of his thigh, and the broad part of Jacob's thigh was benumbed in his wrestling with him. So is that kind of, it's like saying like you're pinned or you're done, is your broad part of your thigh is numb. That's an interesting way I've never seen portrayed in modern wrestling, of touching each other's thighs and being like, well, it is finished. And he said to him, let me go, for the day has dawned. But he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said to him, what is thy name? And he answered to Jacob. And he said to him, thy name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. So here's his name change. He's the 12 tribes of Israel. He's the father, the patriarch of this. And thou hast prevailed with God, and shall be mighty with men. And Jacob asked and said, tell me thy name. And he said, wherefore dost thou ask after my name? And he blessed him thee. And Jacob called the name of that place the face of God. For he said, I have seen God face to face, my life was preserved. And the sun rose upon him, and he passed the face of God, and he halted upon his thigh. So I wonder if the rest of his camp was servants. Jacob was left alone. Okay, so I wonder if like his family was watching from afar him fight God, or if this was just him alone and he had to fight all day to prove that he was willing to do anything for his family to persevere, I suppose. Uh, so okay. So then, after all of this great adventure of Jacob, 20 years or so, he goes back and Esau's gonna come to meet him, and he's nervous about this. Um, but they actually have a good meeting. Jacob gives him like tons of his, I guess I hate the word livestock, but his animals and servants and so forth. And so upon meeting each other, they kiss each other. And Esau looked up and saw the women and the children and said, what are these to thee? And he said, the children with which God has mercifully blessed thy servant. And the maidservants and their children drew near and did reverence. And Leah and her children drew near and did reverence. And after this, drew near Rachel and Joseph and did reverence. And he said, what are these things to thee, all these companies that I have met? And he said, that thy servant might find grace in thy sight, my Lord. And Esau said, I have much, my brother, keep thine own. And Jacob said, if I have found grace in thy sight, receive the gifts through my hands. Therefore have I seen thy face, as if anyone should see the face of God, and thou shalt be well pleased with me. Receive my blessings which I have brought thee, because God has had mercy on me, and I have all things. And he constrained him, and he took them. And he said, let us depart and proceed right onward. And he said to him, my Lord knows that the children are very tender, and the flocks and the herds with me are very young. If then I shall drive them hard one day, all the cattle will die. So they end up getting on well, but they can't live in the same land because they have too many possessions. So they kind of agree to like a truce. They agree to a truce of sorts, and then go into their separate camps. And yeah, Esau has a different nation than Jacob. Now Israel. And shortly thereafter, this main group of the 12 with Jacob going out and abound, and they're I'm trying to remember where this is. Esau meets with Jacob. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, Salem. So here we are in Salem, and like Jerusalem, and we have Dinah, the youngest of Leah's brood, her only daughter. She goes forth to observe the daughters of the inhabitants, and Sychem, the son of Emor the Evite, the ruler of the land, saw her and took her and lay with her. So he rapes her and humbled her, and he was attached to the soul of Dinah, just like he's smitten, but he raped her, so he went so far forward. And he loved the damsel, and he spoke kindly to the damsel. Sychem spoke to Amor his father, saying, take for me the damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that the son of Amor had defiled Dinah his daughter, and now his sons were with his cattle in the plain. And Jacob was silent until they came. And Amor the father of Sychem went forth to Jacob to speak to them, and the son of Jacob came from the plain. And when they heard, the men were deeply pained, and it was very grievous to them, because the man wrought folly in Israel, having lain with the daughter of Jacob, and so it must not be. So they did this evil thing, and all of Jacob and his children they're furious. They're deeply pained. And Amor spoke to them, saying, Sychem, my son, has chosen in his heart your daughter. Give her therefore to him your wife, and intermarry with us. Give us your daughters, and take our daughters for your sons, and dwell in the midst of us, and behold, the land is spacious before you. Dwell in it, and trade, and get possessions in it. And Sychem said to her father and to her brothers, I would find grace before you, and we will give whatever ye shall name. Multiply your demand of dowry, and I will give accordingly as ye shall say to me. so forth. So the revenge of Dinah's brothers and the sons of Jacob answered Sichem and Amor his father craftily. So they're all armed. They're talking, uh, making decisions and rules on how this is going to be peaceably done, and they're basically forcing the hand. Like we're going to have your daughter. Like you have to name your price. We will take your daughter. And they don't like this, so they say. So Levi, the brothers of Dinah, said to them, "We shall not be able to do this thing to give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for it is a reproach to us." So there's this kind of idea of like being uncircumcised and being maybe more hedonistic or animalistic in nature, not having control. Circumcision is something worth getting into, but they do this as a crafty means because further along their plans escalate. So only on these terms will he conform to you and dwell among you, if ye also will be as we are, in that every male of you be circumcised, and we will give our daughter to you, and we will take of your daughters for wife to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will be as one race. Okay. So, but if you will not hearken to us to be circumcised, we will take our daughter and depart. So that pleased them, and they delayed not. They immediately satisfied this. Amor and Sichem, his son, came to the gate of the city and spoke to the men of their city. These men are peaceable. Let them dwell with us upon the land, and let them trade in it. And behold, the land is extensive before them. We will take their daughters to us for wives, and we'll give them our daughters, and so forth. They're intermarrying, and so forth. So they do it on these terms, conform that everyone be circumcised, every male of us be circumcised, and so forth. And all that went in at the gate of the city hearkened to Amor and Sichem his son, and they were circumcised in the flesh of the foreskin. So it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, so they planned this out, okay? The two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon the city securely and slew every male. So the punishment for the prince, essentially, of this city, Sichem, raping their sister, is they kill everybody. They kill their whole tribe. Because I guess the reason being, this cannot sit in our society. You cannot, this is not okay. This is punishable by death, and it's by extension. So because you guys associate with Sichem, you're all going to die too because of what he did. And this is just, this is hellish. Because it reminds me of Exodus, where there's people there that aren't guilty of the evils of Pharaoh and so forth, but I guess you just have to accept in the sense, the law behind it being how evil it was and how it's punishable by death to rape somebody. They slew Amor and Sichem with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of the house and went forth. The sons of Jacob came upon the wounded and ravaged the city wherein they had defiled Dinah. So they kept going with it. Like they take this initial evil, and then the revenge for it is just way far and beyond what it needed to be. Like maybe Sichem could have gotten killed or imprisoned or something in this new land. Like that's probably what I would have done if I was Jacob in this situation. I would have nope, Sichem is in prison, and the rest of you are gonna observe circumcision. Sure, maybe. I'm still learning about that and trying to understand the depth of why that's important. Part of me still feels like circumcision could be this weird blood sacrifice from the synagogue of Satan Talmudic side, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is with the law. I myself am circumcised, but they circumcise. The modern day people are circumcised. They take off way too much skin. You should take off way less, and it was way less painful. So that's another video. But yeah, I would not have behaved this way. If I was Jacob, I would have said send Sichem to prison, and then we can move on. We can get along peaceably. So then let's see what anything else here. Preceptives, store their wives, plundered everything. Yeah, you've heard the old story about the plundering cities and so forth. So then the last of the tribes, the 12th of the tribes, is Benjamin, born as Rachel dies, her second. And then this omitted text, interestingly, on this site I was able to get elsewhere, was in the Septuagint, is Genesis 35:21, that after all this being said and done, it came to pass when Israel dwelt in that land that Reuben went and laid with Bala. So the concubine, or the handmaiden of Rachel, and it appeared grievous before him. And this ends up cursing Reuben later on, but initially it just reads it reads like, oh, by the way, just letting you know also that Reuben couldn't help himself and got with the concubine. And man, oh man, that would be so weird if you were okay. Reuben's the oldest of Leah's children, and now you've seen all these generations with other women, and then all this time the father basically is probably denying the handmaiden Bala, so she's not with anybody. It's just it creates this whole sloppy scenario when you bring in that concubine, when you bring in that extra lover beyond the divine single partner monogamy that makes sense. So yeah, this was a long section, 25 to 35, and it gave me a lot of pause about Jacob and his ways. I don't know why I didn't stop, but it was hitting me like a ton of bricks this time. I did not feel like Jacob's behavior was warranted, and I felt like if it was God's divine way, it wouldn't be this backhanded way of stealing Esau's birthright when he's famished on the verge of death, and then lying to Isaac, uh, lying to Isaac about uh, the venison. It's it just reads really bad. It doesn't give me faith in Jacob. So I uh, I mean it's different times, and Jesus comes in the New Testament to cement the law, but so a lot of this Old Testament stuff just reads so bad, and people who behaved like Jacob did, I don't know how um, they couldn't be thrown into into a hellish cycle or into a world of sin because of their lying ways. Jacob with Laban and with Esau prior was not upfront. Like he was upfront with Laban eventually, but he ran first, and uh, that's why I just have so much trouble with Jacob. He spent 20 years with Laban. I don't know exactly what the inner workings were with that situation, but man, oh man, Jacob just comes across as this lying person a lot of the time, and I have trouble putting my full weight of of trust, my full trust, and in him as a sort of patriarchal figure in our lineage. He's written as one who overtook the elder brother who, I mean, who ostensibly didn't do much wrong. Was just red and hairy versus smooth, and maybe God prefers the kindly, more gentler arts to the more rough ones, and I definitely prefer. I don't like. I think hunting is bad. I don't think anybody should be hunting. It's just not our place, and maybe that's a deeper lesson here. But lots of questions, so much about, so many theories abound about what's going on really, truly between these brothers, Jacob and Esau, and yeah, there's so much to read here. And Joseph, it goes on forward with Joseph and his experience in Egypt, and maybe that'll be a future video. But I just I felt obligated to talk about Jacob here in his crazy times. So God bless y'all. Hope you're reading a lot and trying to get to the truth of things. And I hope you look into Jacob and maybe you have some of the same questions that I have about who was this guy and why is all this chaos surrounding him, and why is his path so strange, and the 12 tribes of Israel through four different, not wives, but four different women. It just doesn't seem right to me. Shouldn't Rachel have bore 12 children and that would have been the right thing? Or maybe it's years upon years, maybe it's the next generation that adds to that, those tribes. It just doesn't read well to me. So lots to look into, but I'm gonna go for now. Look to talk to you guys soon. God bless y'all.